So sometimes we're in a state of overwhelm or anxiety, so much so that we don't even realize and have even time in our brains to recognize what's causing it and how we can get up out of it, how we can just make our lives a little bit easier. Because everything that is welling up inside us affects how we feel about ourselves, it affects how we function with our partners, and one of the biggest culprits of that is decision fatigue. So, in this video, I really wanted to talk about how we tackle decision fatigue. The one thing that we always do first to recognize what's up and then take an action that we can actually do and fold into our lives to be able to make our lives easier around taking things off of our plate. Like taking things off your plate is like a moment to exhale. Okay. Because when we moved, there were so many decisions we had to make. Like even before we moved, so many decisions we had to make. I had to make lists, I had to make spreadsheets, and then you're worried like, am I going to forget something important? Did I miss something? Is there a small caveat that no one told me and I didn't find on the internet? And I'm going to be out here stuck, or something's going to happen, right? It starts to spiral. The overwhelm, the fatigue. I feel it sometimes, and I know I have to get the thing out of my head and I have to stop myself from imagining too much. But decision fatigue is real. We make so many decisions on a regular basis. But I want to share that when we actually decided where we were going to go, some of those decisions, logistical part of making that decision, helped us navigate the decision fatigue, even though we still had a lot, but we had less. So if you watch my video on kind of why we moved here and what those logistics were, there was a lot of reasons why. But on the practical reasons why, it was the Panamanian Balboa uses USD. We didn't have to deal with currency exchange. I have a foundational and conversational, even though it's broken sometimes, understanding and grasp of the language. So the language barrier wasn't as high and wide as it could have been. And we did not have to deal with any time zone stuff because when it came to work and all of that, because we're on the same time zone as we were in Atlanta. So it might seem like, oh, it's not a big deal, but those are three major things that we did not have to deal with when we moved. And for a smooth landing from the first place that we went to bring our kids to, and wanting to make it as seamless as a transition as possible because it's a huge adjustment, those three things mattered. We're not spending money every day because you spend money on a regular basis. We're not spending money every day trying to figure out the currency exchange, looking at a currency exchange, calculator whenever we go to the mart or something like that to figure it out. We are not dealing with time zone and maybe messing up our sleep patterns and kind of jacking us up physically, having to adjust to a time zone change. And we're not completely out here fish out of water, not understanding most of anything that's coming out of anybody's mouth because we have a grasp of the language. Those three things meant that those decisions that and dealings that we would have to handle on pretty much an everyday basis were over here. We're eliminated. And this brings me to this because as human beings, we have the tendency to think about all the decisions we have to make and how overwhelmed and anxious that we feel about them. And I get that. I do. That can be my first mind too. What we don't think about are all the things that we don't have to think about that allow us the spaciousness to lean in to what we really want to deal with, or we really have to deal with, what we're really responsible for. For example, I said what I just said about those three elements we didn't have to think about because I'm like, you know what? We do have a lot of decisions to make, but think about how it would have been if we had to make those decisions on top of currency exchange, time zone change, and the language. It would have been 10 times or whatever more probably anxiety ridden, more difficult, more challenging for us. I mean, we would have had to rise to the occasion. However, we didn't have to. And so this is kind of the encouragement for us to remind ourselves what we don't have to deal with so that we can almost appreciate the fact that, okay, there's some stuff that's off our plate. And a lot of times we don't think about that. We're in the midst of what we have to do. And so the number one thing that we think about when we want to be able to make decisions together and we don't want to deal with decision fatigue is simplification. You might be like, well, duh, that's what you have. But let me break it down, because even though it might be simple, I did that. Even though it might be simple, it's not something we actually do on a regular basis. It's not something that we think about on a regular basis. We're so overwhelmed and anxious about all the things we have to do. We're not thinking about it. And so I want to share 3 ways that has shown up for us in our lives. And of course, we've taken it in our transition here as we, in our move, but we've used this in our lives, period. And it has been helpful. We're having to double down on it now. But 3 things that we do, 3 ways that we simplify our life. So one area in which we deal with simplification to kind of take away decision making or make our decision making a lot less in that area is food. We always got to eat. And our kids are hungry every 2 seconds. And I'm like, you just ate. And they're like, that was so long ago. I was like, yo, it was 90 minutes ago. And I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that it takes 4 hours for your food to digest. So what are we doing? Can we drink some water? Can we have some fruit? Like, why are you coming to me like you're starving? So that used to really irk us, because they're always like, we got to eat, we got to eat. And we're always figuring out what we're going to do. For example, someone's chilling on the couch, taking a moment, chilling in the bed. Other spouse comes in like, so man, it's around 4:30 or so, about supper time. Okay, what are we gonna do for dinner? Oh, I don't know. You're looking in your pantry, you're looking in your refrigerator. It's just one of those days. You're trying to spend a little coin. You don't really want to order out or order takeout. And so, how do you make that easier? Like you might be at work and you're calling each other, texting each other, hey, what we're gonna do for dinner tonight? And it's just a lot, when it comes to that. How do we take that off our plate? So one way that we do that is we will be like, oh, these dishes are on rotation. Each week they're on rotation. We make this curry chickpea, we make this quinoa with plantains and roasted vegetables, and we got some tacos, we can throw some different things in those tacos. That's gonna be on rotation every week. And you just plug it in where it makes sense. And that is very helpful, making sure that we write our list out and we do our menu, because, child, like, when you get to I don't like food shopping. I can't stand. I like it here because I can just go to the market. It's cool here when we're in the outdoor markets, but in like a traditional, which they have here too, when you go in the supermarket and you're going down the aisles, I cannot stand that process. And my husband took over that process in the States, which was great. I loved it, because I don't like it, and he can deal with it. But we make our list together so that we can go to the store and we're not like overwhelmed by that. What do we need to get? Oh, it's on the list. Now sometimes you have a list and then you find yourself browsing around and then you get like 3 things in your cart and you're like, none of these things are actually things that were on the list. And that's another story. But for the most part, the list gives us a place to start where we don't have to think about it. So the menu and the list that we do is really helpful. And I know some people, I don't do this. We haven't gotten to this space, but I definitely have friends and family members who do some meal prep. They will chop up some vegetables, put it in the freezer, some peppers, some onions, so they can throw it into something. They'll meal prep sauces and things like that. So it's a lot easier for them during the week. And that just takes something off their plate. I don't know if any of you kind of do any of these things. Let me know in the comments to make your life easier. Comes to a menu, a food list, how you shop, do you meal prep, all those things. That is helpful. One decision, taking that decision off the plate. So food. And the second thing I would say, and this might seem unorthodox, this might surprise you, and the third one might actually ruffle some feathers, but I'm going to say it anyway. The second thing is clothes. Every day you get up, unless it's a pajama day at home, which sometimes we have those, but every day you're getting up and you're getting dressed. And sometimes you look in your closet and you're like, there's so much in there that you feel like you have nothing to wear. There's so much in there that your mind is trying to figure out what you can put together. And you're like, I kind of want to wear something new, but you haven't thought about it. It's just a lot. And that decision that you're making on a regular basis, unless you're wearing a uniform to work or something to that nature, it's a lot. The one thing that we've done is simplify that as well. So having a capsule wardrobe, downsizing to the things that we actually wear and that actually fit us. And if we haven't worn it, give it away. Or even if we have worn it, but we're like, hey, we're bringing new stuff in the fold, it's time to maybe let this piece go, we do that. I rotate things out of my closet, and I've done this for years, at least once, if not twice a year. I look in my closet and see what's what. I take inventory of what's there. I do not like a cluttered closet. I don't like that feeling that your hangers are so close that you can't move your your clothes even out the way so you can see what you have. I don't like the overwhelming nature of us looking at a whole bunch of clothes in the closet. I've been there. I've had like 50 pair of shoes and 17 belts and like, 10 bags and so much clothes, so many items of clothing. And for years now, I've been downsizing that. My daughter already wears like her favorite things on rotation. She's already there. When we moved here, we had to make even bigger cuts and decisions about what was going to make sense for us in terms of bringing it here, what was going to make sense in our wardrobe, what was going to make sense for the climate. And so when we look in the closet, we don't have a lot of stuff. It's really easy to be like, oh, I'm going to wear this today. There is something visually overwhelming about a closet that is like has so much in it, right? And so what are some things that you can do to kind of declutter the closet so that the decision of what you're going to wear on a regular basis and on a daily basis becomes easier? Creating that physical space in the closet actually creates space in your mind. It creates space, visually in your eyes, so it creates that space in your mind. That is helpful. Again, if you're wearing a uniform, cool, because that really takes the guesswork out of things. But this is similar. Now, I'm also going to share an app that I was like, where have you been all my life? Again, not sponsored. I'm just sharing the tea on this. It's called Index. I was like, so glad I came across it. But basically, you index your current wardrobe, you take pictures of what you have, and you have your wardrobe on your phone. And you can create outfits, create an outfit formula, things like that for yourself on your phone. And what's really cool, like if you have, Monday through Friday, let's say you're like, oh, I don't want to think about what I'm going to wear. You can actually put an outfit in the calendar for each of those days. So you know exactly what you're wearing. You can kind of like outfit prep, like you would meal prep for the days, which I think is pretty cool. And I love that they thought of this and that it's a thing that's out there. Makes me very excited. So yeah, that's one thing. So food, clothes. The third one, like I said, might ruffle, but please take it with a grain of salt. Please hear me out. Kids and kids activities. If you have children, our kids activities take up a lot of mental space, in terms of managing their schedules. And it also takes up a lot of physical time and space, transportation, keeping up with games, recitals, practices, all of that. And because we love our kids, we want them to be in all the things a lot of times that interest them. And one of the things that we had to do was like, okay, what does the flow look like for us that makes sense? Brene Brown said something in an interview that stuck with me. And she was basically like, we are not a parent centered family and we're not a kid centered family. We are a family centered family. And what that means is that we're not pouring into our kids at our own detriment. We're not selfishly doing things just for ourselves at the expense of our kids, but we're considering the whole family and what's best for everyone, for their energy, for their bandwidth, for their passions, for their growth. And that's how we're making the decision. And we've adopted that to say, okay, for our energy and our flow and what we have going on, there can be about two things that our kids are really involved in, especially if it's both of them, that we can cycle in and fold into our lives. And we have to also protect some space for us. So it might not be that you're telling your kid, no, you can't do this. It just might be not now. It might be next year or next semester. It might be, let's try this one or two things and let's, kick it for a year and then we can fold other things in. Or it might be like, you are really into this. And this thing requires a lot of practices, a lot of dates on the calendar, a lot of traveling. So you can do this one thing that you're passionate about. We're not going to add in other things for our own sanity and so that we can move a certain way. Some families, I know if you have an older kid that is driving, I come from New York, so we weren't doing this. But if you have an older kid that is driving, then they can drive younger siblings to things, right? Take some things off of your plate. For me in New York, I just, I took the train, I took public transportation to things once I was in high school. So it wasn't that much, I think, on my parents. But I had a lane. I had one big thing that I did, and that was it. And so creating some parameters around our kids' activities, the decisions we have to make about around that, and the energy that that can take for our kids, considering that. So that we can consider the entire family, like Renee's saying, and not just kid focused and not just parent focused. So I feel like it's that everybody wins situation. So those are the three areas: food, clothes, kids' activities, where we simplify our life. Do you notice something about all three of those things? I'm gonna tell you. They're all decisions that we would have to make either every single day or several times within the week. When you're looking for yourself and where you can simplify your decision, for your decision making and take some decisions off of your plate, it needs to be something that's going to make an impact daily or, a huge impact weekly because it keeps coming up. Food, you're eating every day. You're eating dinner, you're eating whatever every day. Clothes, you're getting dressed pretty much every day, unless it's, like I said, it's a chill pajama. We're just doing our thing. It's a lazy Sunday or what have you. Clothes you're dealing with every day. And kids' activities, usually several times a week, you're folding the kids' activities into the schedule. And these might not be things that work for you. But when you look at your life, what are the things that you can control, that you're having to make decisions on every single day, that you can simplify so that you don't have to have any decision fatigue on that? And so that you have space to focus on the other things you need to decide, make decisions on, and other things that you need to make. Well, yeah, I already said that. Other things you need to make decisions on. Yes, you have time to focus in on that. You have the mental space and the mental capacity to focus in on that. And it still might be a lot. It still might feel stressful. However, remember the thing that I said in the beginning, the thing that I remember for myself and keep in mind is, but I don't have these other things that are also in there. So the more I'm able to do that, and the more I keep simplification in mind, keeping things simple, allowing for spaciousness, the more I'm able to feel better about myself and how I'm showing up. Because if I'm run ragged, I'm not showing up well. I'm not feeling good within myself. I'm feeling guilty about something that I'm not doing that I think I should be doing, or I'm feeling tired and overwhelmed. I'm feeling snippy because even though I'm tired and overwhelmed, stuff still has to get done and people are still calling on me. But when I create spaciousness and I simplify things, sometimes saying no or not yet to certain things in my life on a regular basis, I'm able to show up better. I'm able to show up better for myself and with my husband, right? And with my kids. And so the ripple effect of that is strong. So yeah, you have to find really what works for you. And the simplification, I would say that. And also, don't be afraid to repeat things. That I think that's a big, like, you can get, inspired by what you want to make for dinner, but that inspiration doesn't have to be every day. Maybe once a week, you're like, oh, I'm going to make this inspiring dish that I found on Instagram, and I'm going to take the time to do this. But other days, you're like, nah, we're just going to go with what works, right? Same thing with clothes. You're going to see me repeat clothes because I only have but so much in my closet. I mix and match things, but I don't have a slew of items. That's very purposeful and that's very intentional. And so I'm going to repeat, and I'm okay with that. I'll repeat the food, and I'm going to repeat, clothes, and I'm good with that. So I think too, we have to get comfortable with having some sameness in areas, and it doesn't have to look like monotony. Like I said, you can have moments where you just kind of spontaneous, you switch it up, but ultimately that monotony is comforting. That repeat is comforting. And I think that's a switch that we have to have too. So this is one way that we definitely make decisions and decision fatigue less of a thing for ourselves and in our relationship and household. And there are definitely other ways I want to talk about. So this might end up being a series. We shall see. decision making, how we make decisions. For example, when when we thought we agreed on a decision and then we had to switch, one of us switched up. I thought we were on the same page. Like, what's up with that? Or in situations where we have to decide who does what up in here so that things can flow as easy as they can. How do we decide? I mean, people will say the division of labor. I don't know why I don't like that phrase. It just sounds really, I don't know, really corporate, or like we work in a factory in our house, as opposed to our household. So that's can be odd. But essentially, like, who's responsible for what? How do we decide on that responsibility? Oh, sorry about that. I didn't know that was happening, y'all. But yeah, so that's a major thing. The Yeah, there are just a lot of things that go into when it comes to decision making, that go into making those decisions individually and especially when you are coupled. And it's definitely something that I like talking about, something that I definitely have helped my couples through and coach them through. So I'm definitely down with talking about it here. Please, this is probably not going to be edited out, so forgive this if you're seeing that. Hopefully that's not too distracting. I forgot that it would do that. But yeah, so that's what I have for you today, right? Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, or thoughts came up for you or something resonated, please let me know down in the comments. I love it when you do that because then we can continue the conversation. I can see what you're thinking. You can add to the conversation because right now it's just me talking to you, but through this camera. And so we can add to this conversation. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're feeling the vibe of being in this space, you please subscribe to my channel. I'm Maria Aisha. Bienvenidos or bienvenidos otra vez. Welcome or welcome again. I make videos right now to hopefully empower and encourage us to have stronger relationships with ourselves and our spouses and partners in the midst of the challenges and changes and transitions that we all inevitably go through in life, so that we can talk about it for real, what it really looks like to take action on it, what it really looks like to make shifts and to grow and in ourselves and in our relationships. So if that's the vibe that you're on, then please subscribe. And I will see you on the flip side, AKA tomorrow.